Welcome to the American Intelligence Media. I am your host, Douglas Gabriel, Thomas Paine in the ass of the globalists, and today the globalists better get ready because I got some pain for him. And my guest today, whether he likes it or not, is Michael McKibben. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Douglas.
Well, I got to include you in on this one because you did all the research for it, but I'm going to really get upset because when I was yelling and screaming to President Trump that he can't let the Broadcom, Qualcomm deal for 5G being installed all throughout America go through, even though it went through the CFIUS committees, just like Uranium One went through CFIUS committees again and again. He actually had to write some kind of presidential order or something to say, no, we're not going to let Broadcom, which was based in Singapore, and nobody really wanted to admit that it was a Chinese company. And I'm screaming and yelling, we're not going to let the Chinese take over our 5G, are we? Because 5G is going to kill us all anyway, so why would we let our enemies accelerate it by merging with a fake company, Broadcom, merging with Qualcomm, an American company? See, Broadcom started off as American, then it went to China, and there's a guy we're going to talk about today, Richard C. Walker, one of the people I love to criticize because he's another Silicon Valley cardboard cutout, and he just popped up again. Betsy says to me, Richard C. Walker, do you think C could stand for Clinton? And Walker isn't that in the Bush family, the Walkers? And I'm going, are you kidding? And then she kept saying this. She was basically saying, look at Richard C. Walker again. So I ask you, would you look again? And he pops up again. He had invented the Internet of Things. He was HP, he worked for Hewlett Packard, and then he started Agilent. And then your recent research shows that even Broadcom came underneath the control of another Hillary stooge who could not have made all the patents or invented all these things that he has patents, that his name is on these patents, or all the things which are literally the most cutting-edge technology that there is. And yet he's also does all these other things. Well, he's just like Jerry C. Jones. And what then came out of Rose Law Firm, which is Hillary's law firm in Little Rock, Arkansas. And now we saw that out of that, the connection to the IBM Eclipse Foundation was direct. And then we found that out of that, Agilent was formed by Richard C. Walker, which created the aggressive remote control of everything in the world and an Internet of Things patent that makes everything else invented afterwards basically become a subset of it. And it's written by Richard C. Walker. We couldn't understand this. So now you have discovered so much more, and it's not a coincidence that Betsy's intuition pointed us in this direction to once again look at Richard C. Walker, who I'm going to say is very much like a sir or a lord in Queen Elizabeth's Privy Council, and that instead of Queen Elizabeth, it's Queen Hillary, because she's got the digital encryption keys, she's got the tax on the internet, she's moved her operation to Shanghai, China, and Broadcom has popped up again through Richard C. Walker as a fake front man in America, because I suggest that, again, they're going to try to get the 5G contract to make sure that all of us get plunged into a millimeter hell realm that is so pervasive, all for the speed of our computers and our cell phones, and it will all pad the pockets of Hillary and her stooges like Richard C. Walker. So what have you discovered in your recent research, Michael? Because for those who've been following this, you are the person who pointed this out, and the research that your friends at Americans for Innovation and other places do, you're the one who brought it to everyone's attention. So now you've looked at it again. What can you tell us more about this pretty boy of Hillary's, Richard C. Walker?
Pretty boy. Well, yeah, I've learned to trust Betsy's intuition, and we all have. And so I ask everyone to just double down on the research and pull it back out and refresh themselves. And we discovered some very interesting bits of timing. And the very first patent that Richard C. Walker's name is on is from 1989 or 88. and it happens to coincide with the original patent filings for the QRS-11. If you'll recall that, well, you know what it is, Douglas.
Oh, yeah.
But it's the uninterruptible autopilot that will enable people to take over planes, to wreck planes, by the presence of this particular chip. It's really a crystal. It's an oscillator crystal. Well, the interesting thing about this patent that Walker's name is on is it's also filed for oscillators, but it's not focused on any particular type of oscillator. So the QRS-11 specifically crystal, silica crystal, whereas this other patent next to it encompasses any other kind of oscillator. So we started looking at the sequence of events of who was assigned ownership of this particular patent, which is its oldest one. It's still in play today, and it went from Hewlett-Packard to Agilent when Walker started Agilent, and then it proceeded to be passed over to another company called Avago. I'm going from memory here. What's the name of that company?
Avago.
Douglas?
I believe it's called Avago. A-V-A-G-O. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Okay, A-V-A-G-O. That's it. Avago Technologies. And then Avago transferred ownership to Avago Singapore, and then that became Broadcom Singapore. And so the current ownership of this particular patent is Broadcom Singapore, even though President Trump ordered Broadcom to come back to the U.S., which they have done in the recent filings that we're looking at, and yet we don't see the transfer of this particular patent. So as far as we can tell, this patent is still held by a company, Avago or Broadcom Singapore, in Singapore. And that correlates with another involvement of Singapore. Singapore was quite involved in the early days of the Highlands Group in the early 92, 93, under Clinton's administration. So we've seen this heavy involvement of military from Singapore all the way along in this Internet of Things. So the question, what does Richard C., what does the C stand for? According to his very earliest filings, it stands for Clayton. Now, we don't know if that's true or not, because if you take a look at the breadth of filings that all have Richard C. Walker's name in it, no human being could have done this. No engineer could have been this prolific for this long period of time. And another humorous thing about this is he started a website in 2001 where he put up his publications and presentations and the like, and he has this huge, massive amount of paintings that he's done, and he's also an expert in carnivorous plants. So this guy is a magical figure, and it's clear that he is some sort of conduit that the Internet of Things plan pumped all of the key technologies that make up the Internet of Things so that they could control all the claims, intellectual property claims going forward. So by the time I came along, it's really clear Richard C. Walker was tapped as the man to invent all things related to the Internet, and it's real clear that our technology, our scalable social networking technology, really threw a monkey wrench into their plan, and does explain to me why they then determined they had to steal it and pretend we never existed. And not only my technology, but also other people's technology that I've come to become familiar with.
And it seems to me that a very clear picture is forming in my mind. Hillary? Walmart? China? Singapore? Broadcom wants to take over all 5G in America? All modern, basically, patents that have to do with the Internet of Things has to go through Hillary. Hillary has the Intrust encryption keys, what are they called? The public key infrastructure.
Right.
All these crypto keys that every single communication on the Internet is basically taxed, and it goes to a company that Jerry C. Jones runs that she worked with for 17 years in Rose Law Firm. So they all are clustered around Hillary and patent theft. And so I'm going to call her the digital global queen of the world. She's the digital queen. She's like trying to be like Queen Elizabeth, but she's the digital queen. And so she has all these patents that she also shares with the Brits, because Serco runs the patent office, and they were stealing these patents and sharing them with these globalists. But there's kind of a competition I see between the Queen.
I need to interject something here. In 1995 timeframe, the Intellectual Property Institute was formed by Sir Geoffrey Patty of Serco fame, the guy who founded Serco, and one of his early trustees in that group was Hewlett Packard. So I think you're onto something here. I think that they decided that Hillary was going to be their repository from a political standpoint. Walker was going to be their repository from a technology claims viewpoint, because about the time of the Agilent funding, where HP spun off Agilent for $1.4 billion, I believe, Sir Geoffrey came over here and had meetings in Washington, where the Intellectual Property Institute in the UK was coordinating efforts with the U.S. Patent Office, and clearly they had a plan to completely control the technologies that they needed to accomplish this digital prison that they've created.
And as you have already found out through your research, we knew that the Brits had to be involved in Little Rock, Arkansas's digital cabal, which included Chandler and Stephen Crocker and the head of the patent office. What was his name?
David J. Capos.
There you go. How can I forget David Capos and all of this? And then you have to add, yes, unbelievably, James Comey, Robert Mueller, Rod Rosenstein, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton.
All the people from the FBI and the DOJ.
The same exact people who are causing the trouble right now, still trying to steal everything. But we couldn't figure out at first, and I kept saying, I'm disturbed by this, Michael. Can't you get somebody to go down in those mines so deep that you come up with the British connection to this group? Because you had spelled it out in the way that they created laws, the way that they built the back doors and everything, the way that they basically said, if it's going to be digital, it has to come through us, and we're going to get our piece of the pie, and we're going to put in our back door, and it's all going to be militarized. It's all going to be weaponized. So this has been the plan from the beginning, but we couldn't quite get that connection, and now the connection becomes ultra clear, not only through Geoffrey Patty, but through Richard C. Walker, working through Hewlett Packard, and then Hewlett Packard, he leaves there. And at the same time, if you look at the dates that you have uncovered in your recent research, anyone who looks at those will see that there's overlaps that don't make any sense. This guy was working for companies while he was still going to school.
Right.
He was massively inventing incredible things while he was still in school. I mean, for his first degree. It doesn't make sense. So then when you look at it as a fake, and that it's another fake person like Jerry C. Jones is for Hillary, so Richard C. Walker's another fake person, well, that's the British connection. And so there you have the Queen and her Privy Council through Geoffrey Patty, working through HP. They branch off with a huge amount of money. Nobody knows where it came from, $1.4 billion. No doubt it came from...
They all got it from London.
Yeah, exactly. It's all the same old venture capitalists that you always point out. And then all of a sudden, it just becomes the biggest company in the world that really doesn't do anything, but has all the patents. And then, as you pointed out, just like so many of these people who have been basically groomed to be in these fake propaganda positions, he couldn't have done all the things that he has listed. That's not humanly possible for his age or for what it would take, but it is certainly possible that he's simply the spokesperson, just like...
Well, did you listen to that audio of one of his lectures from 2000? When was that? 2002.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where he's talking about his philosophy of life.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing. This guy's a Renaissance man, if you take it at face value.
He's a painter. He's a philosopher. He is a social justice warrior. He is the inventor of so many things that you can't even name them all. He's written so many white papers that have led us into the digital revolution that you might as well say he's the unsung king of the digital revolution. He would be like what a dude Zuckerberg is supposed to be, but isn't. He's just a fake cardboard cutout. Both of them are. So is Jerry C. Jones. So is the IBM Eclipse Foundation. But what we're seeing here is that he's popped up again as, again, one of the boy wonders from Silicon Valley that just breathed in the binary code into their brain, and now they are the cyborg that's leading us into the future of artificial intelligence. No. It's all fake. It's the same old military group. It's the Highlands Forum. It's the people who want to weaponize all of this stuff. So what do we see now?
Right.
Broadcom couldn't get the contract with Qualcomm to take over 5G to irradiate us all. So, because Trump intervened. So the company comes back to America, rebrands itself, acts like it's American, gives us a front man like they always like to have, a nice beta boy, soy boy kind of guy with long hair who still wears round glasses. Okay? I mean, this is such a bad archetype. It's the same old archetype as usual. And we're supposed to believe...
Somebody that's this accomplished, there's scant little out there about him except what he published about himself, which is another telltale sign something's wrong with the story. Because if you read through these patents, these are very technical patents. Electronics out the wazoo, and there's no way that somebody this prolific would not be known in the general engineering community, and he's not.
He never speaks in public. He only writes white papers that are the disruptive forces in the digital revolution. He's only owns it all. It all comes back to him because the Internet of Things is everything. Everything digitized. That would include the entire internet. That includes all of the crypto keys. It includes basically all of commerce that is on the internet. It includes ICANN. It includes everything. And it doesn't matter if Sir Timothy Berners-Lee invents a new internet, it will control that too. And it doesn't matter that Google collapses and turns into Alphabet. He will still control that too. And that goes back to one person. And that would be Hillary Clinton.
Hillary.
And that is the top student of James P. Chandler III. You might tell them about him.
James P. Chandler III is a very intelligent man who was involved with early programming languages and was on the Army team that developed COBOL and Assembler, COBOL, and Fortran. And then he went into intellectual property law and became a law professor. And so by the Clinton administration, he was a big man on campus at George Washington University, ran their computer law center at George Washington University, and then became Bill and Hillary Clinton's chief intellectual property / counterfeiting / trade secrets / patents / intellectual property advisor and national security advisor. And so he actually composed many of our laws on intellectual property, especially during the 1990s. And that was, in fact, in parallel with all the Highlands Group efforts to weaponize technology. And so Chandler was one of the men that laid the foundation for what we have today in terms of intellectual property law, or the lack thereof.
And had he not
all the loopholes.
Yeah, and had he not stole your trade secrets, your intellectual property, your patents, your copyrights, and everything else, and given them to the fake IBM Eclipse group that was waiting for them to solve the problem of how to scale social contact on the internet, which they couldn't figure out because it took a brand new way of thinking, and that's what you and your group of engineers did. What they saw there was the opportunity to control the world and take it away from the Queen of England, who was controlling it physically by, of course, the Commonwealth, 54 nations, and all the resources that are there, as well as the British Empire, the imperialism that was learned from the corporate structure of the British East India Company and the Dutch East India Company, which we are still at war with to this very day. So Hillary went in, she learned the tricks of the Privy Council, which then she transformed with the help of rewriting the Civil Service Act in the 70s, where they added a new layer that only a lawyer could come up with called the Senior Executive Services. And what those are people who get paid more than all the civil servants, no matter how many years they've worked, because they're just so much more intelligent. And in all cases, initially, it was actually called the SIS, the Senior Intelligence Service, and it was completely focused on paying high salaries to people in the digital field, in the technology field. Well, of course, who do you think came up with that? Well, yeah, you know who came up with it. That would be Chandler. So Chandler took the basis of what's called the Mercers in Britain. The Mercers are a bunch of monopolies that the Queen allows and gives charters to that allows to be a monopoly. It's completely legal. And nobody gets to cross over the line, and they control what they control, and that's it. So that came to America under the auspices of the 500 DOJ lawyers who control the SES, the Senior Executive Service, which has 10,000 members in every single branch of the federal agencies of the American government. And they're secret little committees, and nobody knows they even exist, and they get paid really premium amounts, and they make sure that things stay the way they've always been. And
that's
absolutely
exactly the way the Privy Council members operate in British industry. They're scattered out throughout all the industry, always on the boards, always have their fingers in all the pies. So yeah, it really looks like this is the parallel system. They weren't even creative enough to make their own. We just copied the British.
That's what we did, but in Britain it's legal. It's not legal here. And what has happened is we have a resistance, what we call the shadow government, and they're in absolute resistance. They're in a coup d'etat against a sitting president. Now, in the past, presidents just kowtowed. The president got elected, and then after the inaugural ceremony, they go into the White House, and then somebody comes in and says, "Now, let me tell you the way it really is. You don't have any power. We tell you what to do." And if you don't understand this, just look at the series on television called Homeland. It's the way it is. The counterintelligence people come in and tell you that everything the FBI told you, throw away. Everything the DOJ or the State Department or the CIA, just throw it away. We're counterintelligence. We're the ones who control you. And that's the way it is. And if we don't like you, we take you out. And I call it the rogue CIA because those very people go out into corporations and get jobs doing this very stuff in intelligence agencies that, in fact, work against our government. They're international globalist intelligence agencies like Lockheed, which just closed their entire intelligence agency down because somebody busted them. I don't know who that could have been, Michael. Anybody, busted them, showed them what the golden share was in Lockheed, and they had to close down the largest intelligence service in America that's private and give it back over to, yes, you guessed it, the CIA's Leidos Company, which is a private corporation that takes our tax dollars and uses them to weaponize things that the Highlands Forum or the Highlands Group determines the CIA should focus on next as a weaponization. And that's what we get, folks. We get the remnants of what they share with us in open source. But before they share it with us, there's backdoors put in every bit of it. So it goes back to there is a war. It's not necessarily just an information war, though information travels across these lines. This is if all of economy, our entire commerce of the whole world is now on the internet of any significance.
Yeah, it appears they thought they could keep all these games secret behind the scenes. Nobody would know. They could take care of each other, snigger, snigger. And everybody wouldn't be worse for wear, and they could control the economy from these secret controls, and Hillary would be queen.
And a perfect example, Stephen Crocker. One man controlled the ability to turn you on or off on the internet with a push of a button. And anybody who says that we didn't control the internet is stupid. He was there in that digital cabal in Little Rock, Arkansas, with Chandler and with Hitler Clinton, Hilda Beast Clinton, whatever you want to call her, Queen of the World, the digital monarch queen of the world, who has her own digital privy council with her pretty boys who are Silicon Valley cutout cardboard warlords, basically. And so where did they move? To China. What have I been screaming about? We're in a war with China. Hillary moved to the Shanghai Economic Zone. Good heavens. How many times have we preached against the evil that is? And yet she got caught up in it thinking because the Queen couldn't control China. Remember that. The Queens controlled everywhere, India, everywhere else, but never China. No one's ever controlled China. So Hillary, through Walmart, got a paid position on the Walmart board, sold 65% of our manufacturing out to China. But it really wasn't even China. It was Taiwan, and China's basically taking over Taiwan. That's the reason we are watching a war between Taiwan and China. Right now, we just sent ships through the straits between the two countries because China says Taiwan doesn't exist. And China says that in Shanghai, if you're Chinese or if you live there and you're a citizen of the Shanghai Economic Zone, you get a 17% discount on buying and selling gold or basically anything else. But you can't take the money out of Shanghai. So guess what, Hillary? You've been Shanghaied. You may be the queen, the digital monarch of the world, but you live in Shanghai. And you know what they do to people like you when they're done with you? Yeah, they don't find the body. They get shanghaied, as Betsy just said. They get shanghaied. Have you never watched those old sailor movies? You just don't go ashore in Shanghai, okay? But she did with Kissinger's recommendation, and John Breyer's over there. By the way, you know John Breyer better than anybody. Has anybody seen him since they probably absorbed him into the Chinese collective? I mean, has he come back to America? He went over there a long time ago.
He was wiped off the web years ago, and he's never reappeared.
He may not even be alive, Michael. They absorb you into the totalitarian collective. You just revealed in some contracts with Entrust, when Entrust became Axiom, and then it became LiveRamp, and then it became A&T, and then it had SoftBank join it, and then it all in Shanghai, changing the company's name so many times no one has any idea their name, who they are, what they do, or where they came from. And you revealed that every single contract with anybody in China, there is a group called the Partnership Committee. So if it's, let's say it's Lenovo, IBM's laptops that they sold out to China a long time ago, and they put the chips with the mechanical engines on them so that they could spy on us. Yeah, Trump stopped all that. Anyway, let's say Lenovo has a contract with China. Well, guess what? They have a thing called Lenovo Partnership Committee. That would be the Chinese totalitarian Central Committee members. On every contract you get, it says they don't have to follow U.S. law. They don't have to follow any law. They can do whatever they want. And the controlling committee is totalitarian communists.
How did Lenovo get started? It was sold, the PC group, from IBM in December of 2004. So clearly this has been a group of people who have had this agenda for a long time to consolidate the technology and keep it out of the hands of government regulators and in the hands of these private groups. And the amazing thing to me is how Hillary Clinton could have gained control over all of those elements. This was a very long-term plan.
Oh, I think these people all have their offshore accounts, and since the early 90s, as you pointed out, they've just been packing that money in because every single deal they do is a corrupt deal, and it has nothing to do with America. That group, the IBM Eclipse Foundation, correct me, I'm just going to give the long and the short of it, Chandler went to South America and took what they stole from you and made a bundle. Hillary went with money from Mitt Romney's Bain Capital, investing in her Systematech, taking the QRS-11 and other inventions to Europe, where she made a ton of money, and putting it in every single plane in the entire world and most trains.
By the way, that would have included this other Walker patent, this oscillator patent. So I think the two of those were combined together because that is a piece that basically allows anything that has this piece of technology to be tracked in 3 dimensions. So you can tell exactly where it is and how high it is.
And taken down and crashed. Yeah. What they call remote aggressive control, which is what the Richard C. Walker Internet of Things patent is all about. So the QRS-11, the uninterruptible autopilot that is in every single plane that can take over every plane and bring it down. They can land it or they can do whatever they want with it. So yes, you're seeing the towers, and you're thinking Hillary, and you're thinking Bush, and you're thinking, yes, in fact, Bill Clinton was he was chosen by Averell Harriman, I believe, to be a Rhodes Scholar. He was handpicked by the Bush clan, basically. So when you say Bill Clinton, you say Bush family. And when you say Hillary Clinton, you say Hugh Rodham, who was the boss, the chief of the mob, and he was an alderman in Chicago. We're talking about the mob married the CIA rogue family, White House family, the Bush. That's what we get with the Clintons. And now Hillary, literally, I honestly believe Hillary said, look, Queen Elizabeth, you're old, I'm taking over. And the only good thing I have to say about Hillary is the following. Since she's moved to China, it will be good, because then when she wears a kimono, it can cover her body brace. She is going to be eaten just like John Breyer. We won't even hear from them anymore. I predicted that Eric Schmidt would barely get out alive from China once he went over there and helped them with their 5G and then perfected Dragonfly and their social credit system. I actually predicted, because I kept saying it every couple of weeks, I said, where's Eric Schmidt? Is he coming back? He might not be coming back. China eats people. And, the head of Alibaba, yeah. Well, he probably won't be around much longer anyway, because it was one of his contracts you were reading to us the other day, which shows that he is nothing more than a puppet. He is, when you say Alibaba, you say the Chinese Communist Central Committee. Period. He is nothing but a front guy. And when you say Chinese stock market, you say that's not capitalism, that's totalitarian.
Well, when you look at their board, it's international banks.
And changing fake money through currency exchange. And as we know, China wants to be the currency ruler of the world, and they can't be. So notice, oh, this is so beautiful. Shanghai district, oh, they've done it again. Out of the blue one day, they announced that they somehow, out of the Shanghai Gold Exchange, they somehow gleaned off the top 8,000 tons of gold, and they put it into the Chinese holdings, reserve holdings, and then they said they were going to back up the yuan with that and take over all currency. Well, guess what happened? The Gold Commission sent someone, and they found they don't have any of that gold. So the 8,000 tons of gold, which they literally called, which is a big joke, the Yamashita gold, which was gold produced out of thin air, and they actually took some of their gold. Don't even get me started. Let's just stick on this story. So what happened then? They say, sorry, we made a mistake. We don't have that 8,000 tons of gold. We don't have one single ounce of it, not 1 gram. And then they caught them for sending fake gold and silver all over the world, counterfeit just on the top, fake gold and silver. And then just recently, last week, I believe it was, they announced that out of the Shanghai Gold Exchange District, they have again gleaned 1,000 tons of gold that they put into the gold reserve of the Chinese. If anyone does business with China, you are just plain stupid. You've never studied history, and you haven't even looked at modern times. Trump is in a war with China. He's going to win, and he's going to squish them, and they will become our vassals, because they are our vassals. They're just complaining totalitarian communist vassals instead of compliant ones like we made the Japanese, like we made the Taiwanese, like we made the South Koreans, like we're going to make any country that wants to be a manufacturing outlet for us. But we're going to manufacture ourselves now. So guess what, China? You are in so much hot water. And guess what, any of you who did deals with China? You're going to be like John Breyer. Where is he? I know where he is. and he's become Chinese. There is no John Breyer anymore. He has been absorbed into the collective of the totalitarian communist government that we should not be doing one speck of business with, the World Trade Organization, because of Bill Clinton allowed China to become most favored nation trading status, which is evil, seeing that they were killing millions of Tibetans at the same moment. But it got Hillary onto the board of the Walmart family, Sam Walton, and they don't seem to be able to get enough money. $20 billion from the Clinton Foundations wasn't enough. She wants to get up in the trillions like the Queen has. And then she wants to get one of those purses. But I don't know that she's going to get the golden shares. Well, I guess she does. She's got the golden shares of Entrust. She's got the old golden shares of Richard C. Walker and Jerry C. Jones and all these other things. So I guess you could literally say, Serco, she's in it all. And she gets her piece of it. She gets an internet tax, for heaven's sakes. Her foundation gets a piece of every pie. Wherever money flows, it flows to a Clinton Foundation. So I'm going to have to say that I'm developing a little respect for the digital queen of the world and the fact that she has pretty much copied what the Queen and her Privy Council has taught her, but she has forgotten that it's illegal in America and the Chinese are going to eat her.